Regional Water Authority Commission to order and ask Trina to please take roll.
Yeah, City of Lafayette.
Here.
City of Carlton is absent, and McMinnville Water and Light.
Is here. So Preston, we have minutes from our previous meeting. Those were sent out to us electronically. I've looked at them. Doesn't appear to be any issues with them. Maybe you had a chance to look at them.
I did, Ed, and they look fine to me.
Okay, if you would move, I'll second and we can vote on them.
Okay, I'll move to approve the minutes of the Yamhill Regional Water Authority for November 17th, 2020.
Okay, second to that. Any questions, comments around the table? Anybody at all? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show the minute, just so we don't have a full board meeting, and we'll move that on down. So, okay, so let's look at number 5, update on the Willamette River water right. John, do you want to have that item?
Sure. I think Adam's going to do a little presentation for us on that. So I don't know, Trina. Oh, she got it.
Okay, Adam, welcome.
Okay, there we go. I had to find my mute button. Good morning, everybody. And this is John, I think a 15-minute update on not so much your Willamette River water right, but more about the reallocation of the stored water in the Willamette Basin, and a little bit about both the state and federal process, and then a little bit about some legislation that might be coming in 2021. Okay, John, does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Adam, for the record, would you introduce yourself? Just there's some people here probably don't know who you are.
Yeah, I think I know most of them, but they may not know me. So I am Adam Sussman with GSI Water Solutions, and I'm here today on behalf of the Oregon Water Utilities Council. And with me is Nikki Iverson, who is out there somewhere, General Manager for Hillsborough Water and Joint Water Commission, and Joel Carey, who's currently the chair of the Oregon Water Utilities Council. You guys out there? Joel, Nikki? Okay. Nikki, are you and Joel, are you guys there?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm here.
Yep. Okay, so to make sure we didn't lose you. Okay, so we have a few slides that Trina's put up here, and I'm going to do a little bit of background in the first slide, and then Nikki Iverson will again introduce herself and go through the rest. So we wanted to just come and give you an update on this process that's been going on for a very long time to reallocate the stored water in the 13 Willamette Project reservoirs. Most of you are familiar with those. They store, all of these reservoirs store a total of about 1.6 million acre feet. And I want to preface all of this by saying that I completely understand that all of you as entities, as water suppliers, have your own water rights, you have your own water supplies, you're working on water rights on the Willamette River. And so this whole discussion about getting access to stored water is not necessarily something that's your water supply today or tomorrow, but it's something that we have been working on for a long time so that we could be thinking about water supply 50 years from now, or maybe even 100 years from now. And so that's what this project is really about. So this water stored in these reservoirs has not been and is not currently available for use for municipal supply. So suffice to say, since the late 80s, early 90s, the Oregon Water Utilities Council and the League of Oregon Cities have been pushing and going through processes so that we can get access to this water. The water in these reservoirs has never been allocated. The space in the reservoirs has never been allocated. So with a lot of leadership through Oregon Water Utilities Council, and as Nikki is sort of our guiding light through that, we've gone through this process to get the water allocated in the way you see in the bottom table. We show both these tables because we wanted to we like to show that as the tentative plan, M&I, which is municipal and industrial, we're going to get about 73,000 acre feet, or about 5%. But again, with a lot of interaction with our congressional delegation, with the Bureau of Reclamation, and the Army Corps of Engineers, we were able actually to push that to 10%, or close to 160,000 acre feet. So this is a process that we've been going through, again, for 25, 30 years to get this water allocated for municipal and industrial use. Once the water was allocated in these buckets, and this slide is showing the biggest bucket, fish and wildlife, and the municipal and industrial. The AI is for agriculture and irrigation. Those are the categories. There then was a biological opinion that needed to be accomplished to evaluate the reallocation, or the actual first time allocation of this water. And if we go to the next slide, Nikki can just say a few words about the BIOP.
So Adam, this is Ed Gormley. Hey, John, I've got a doctor's appointment that I'm at, so I'm going to have to get off this call. So John, if you'll take care of the meeting, Preston, thank you for being here today. And Adam, thanks for the presentation. So John, you
Sure.
copy this?
Yep.
Okay,
I'm good.
I'll see you tonight. Take
All
care.
right, thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ed.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
All right, Adam, I'm just gonna jump in here.
Yep.
All right, so essentially, that joint use pool was the initial recommendation that Adam showed, and we actually worked really closely with AG that year and developed a kind of a counter proposal that if none of the uses were getting anything close to what they needed, why would we maintain a joint use pool? And so we did a really aggressive effort with the congressional delegation and the different agencies, and kind of came up with a counter proposal. And I think we're successful in that effort because, as you can see, they changed to the removing the joint use pool as part of the final action of that. So we did what I called a congressional blitz. We went around and met with all of our offices in Oregon and talked to all of them, and then several of the state agencies and governor's office as well. And so when that moved forward, the BIOP was still being developed by NIMS. And part of that was looking at, impacts to endangered species. And what happened is, as usual in Oregon, there was a lot of fighting about it because it really turned into a fish farm fight where the environmental folks wanted all the water, all the stored water in the whole basin for fish, and the farm folks really felt like they didn't get the amount they wanted. Municipal, we did kind of have a target of 250,000 acre feet, but I think we're just trying to take what we can get as part of this process, knowing that the environmental groups wanted to reserve all the water for fish, and that being successful to get any of it is what we need, with the end goal of having a municipal contracting program with the Corps. As part of the BIOP, they limited M&I contracts to 11,000 acre feet until the larger BIOP was approved. Initially, NIMS did not want to issue a BIOP on this. They wanted to hold off for the bigger basin BIOP. We met with the Corps, NIMS, and DeFazio and Schrader joined us in that meeting, and actually were the ones that called for the meeting. And NIMS agreed to do the BIOP ahead of it. I'm not sure they actually could have said no to that anyway, but that's kind of what led to this BIOP being prepared. So this cap came from, hey, you guys can get access to this 11,000 until the larger BIOP is done. This was a big issue for AG too, because they were capped at 90,000 acre feet in the first BIOP, and they actually have to wait until that larger BIOP is done, because that was a condition of the bigger basin. But at least communities are going to get access to some of the water until they finish this larger BIOP, which I think is tentatively scheduled for 2023. This ends up being a much longer view for us. In water, I think this is the last water really that's available in Oregon. And so we got to have the long view is what I call it. For municipalities, we need to look at 50 to 100 years or whatever's left on the table for future generations. And really that's what this is to make sure that we're all planning ahead and have available supply if needed, to back up our natural flow rights that we have now, as conditions may get worse for droughts or other things. It also includes, the IAP includes a lot of provisions to protect fish. It includes an incredibly complicated curtailment formula that I'm not sure anybody understands except the Corps. So we'll see how that plays out, and different flow objectives. And then also an annual report and meeting with NIPS. Anything you'd want to add to that, Adam, on the bio?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say for Preston and John, because this is not something you guys talk about every day, just to kind of back up, we had to go through this long process to take this 1.6 million acre feet of stored water and allocate it in the reservoirs like that chart shows, because it had actually never been allocated before. And once we got through that complicated process with the Army Corps of Engineers, because it's a federal action that they were taking, we had to do this BIOP that Nikki's talking about. This BIOP is specific to the actual allocation of the storage space, not to be confused with other BIOPs that are going on in the Willamette Basin that are more about the larger question about the operation of the project. So it gets very confusing. This was a very narrow, specific BIOP based on the allocation of that stored water. Okay.
So I had a question, Adam. So are the fish interests going to sue over this?
Go ahead, Nikki. I'm not
Well,
sure they can.
Well, they already have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really good question because I don't think we included it. Essentially, the Enviros tried to stop the chief's report. So we were working with the Fazio, and I flew back a few times this last year, and our federal consultant had, was great at setting up all those meetings with key staff and Fazio on it because he's chair of transportation infrastructure. He was really in a key position to help us through this and to negotiate between the different groups. But in particular, Water Watch of Oregon was saying that we should have full local control to change the allocation. And that had a lot of people scratching their head because they usually like everything in law and written down, so there's no uncertainty. So they ended up trying to stop the chief's report, and there was a lot of legal questions about whether you can stop a report that was really the conclusion of a study, and whether that's an action and whether they really have the ability to do that. In their report, they kind of said that Congress just rubber stamps everything, which I don't think some of the congressional offices appreciated. And you'll see some letters that they sent out there because we had our meetings with NIMS and the Corps that they might be calling out Hillsborough in particular for pressuring NIMS to do the BIOP and things like that. They looked at pretty much every avenue they could to stop it. And but the one, we'll talk a little bit about the language that we worked on with Jeff Markey is our federal lobbyist consultant that really helped us get some of that through. Because it's hard from Oregon to get some of this stuff done at the federal level because you just need boots on the ground, that know people and have the relationships. But one thing that you should be aware is that we did a public records request of Water Watch's communication with NIMS behind the scenes because of some information we got from the department, and found about almost 90 emails and communication and work that they were doing on the BIOP with them. And we submitted that as part of the court case at OAC. And so I don't know, Joel can maybe talk a little bit about that. I think that helped us in the background pull Water Watch off from being as successful. And it definitely put the spotlight on them from working with them behind the scenes. I definitely think as part of that, at least our Willamette project might have a target on our back now for doing that, but it seemed to be the right thing to do for all water supply agencies. Is that behind the scenes work that they were doing isn't fair, and the congressional offices didn't appreciate it either. So at this point, Water Watch is saying some of the language that got in. Why don't we go ahead to the next slide? Because this kind of relates to that. Was what they wanted originally, even though that might not have been the true story behind the scenes. This was the language that we worked on with the Fazio and his staff. And it, you know, it gets a little long, but really these, I'm going to highlight a couple of key points that were part of this negotiation. So the environmental groups want full local control, and after what we found was going on between them and NIMS, you could see why. And so initially they were really pressuring DeFazio for that, but because of the information we submitted, he became much more nervous about full local control. The Corps was pressuring hard to keep it at 10%, which is their national policy. And until they saw that information about NIMS and WaterWatch working together behind the scenes, they were even considering up to 25% or more of local control. And that was really instrumental. And Jeff really helped us, and the Corps helped us keep this at 10%, which is the national standard. Last we had heard in May, it might stay at 15%, but they've decided after everything that was going on, just that they didn't, otherwise you have to go back to Congress. And we all know how hard that is to do. So we felt pretty good about that. And then Jeff and his staff helped point out that, well, it's interesting because munis are 10%. If you can change it 10%, what's to stop them from just taking the municipal portion completely away, right? And so we worked on, next slide, I'll show you that third. So this was the language that we worked on with DeFazio and his staff, that they couldn't take it from one pool. And I think this was actually ended up being a concern likely for fish and for ag as well. And so it worked out for all of us, but we would be the ones that could just be taken off the table without going back to Congress. And given the information we submitted through some of those court cases, we thought best to protect ourselves and our municipal interests. And so, you know, I know a lot of the enviros didn't want to go back to Congress, but the congressional delegation, you know, really wants to maintain their own authority on this, and especially the Corps doesn't want to have one basin that has a different threshold than all the other basins in the country. And that 10% was pretty negotiated out of a Georgia case that happened many years ago too. And I think they were nervous to kind of set a precedent. So this is really, these two pieces are the language that we spent a lot of time with. And, you know, my last trip was February, right before 2020. Right before the pandemic shut everything down. And then we had several calls with them after that. But I think those trips were definitely worth it. And I'm not sure I could have gotten it all done without Jeff's help. He's got really good relationships with key staff. And so we did our best in this language to really support it. And it's pretty close to what was in the final. But YRWA ended up being attached to the big omnibus bill that was approved at the end of December and signed, I think, by the president on December 28th, which was a really good for us that it was kind of rolled into there and moved forward so that we didn't have to continue to wait. It really is a good bipartisan package, YRWA 2020. I think both sides parties were very happy with a lot of the infrastructure gains that they achieved out of this bill. And so now we're able to move forward into kind of the next phase and work on a municipal contracting program. There is a contracting program in the Rogue Basin for municipal, and the Corps said ours will look very similar. But it really just comes down to implementation now and how this goes. WaterWatch had until, I think, early January to submit a petition, because early they said that if this language, this 10% got in, that they were happy, which is kind of funny given what was going on behind the scenes at the congressional level. But they said now they need a little more time because the bill got passed through Congress over the holidays, and they asked the courts for 30 days, and I think it was extended. Joel, he's our chair of OWAC right now in Fulton Valley Water District. Joel, do you have any updates on that petition, or is that accurate?
It's accurate, Stacy. Thanks. Yeah, just to add to what Stacy mentioned. So it is WaterWatch, the plaintiff in this case, has indicated they're likely to dismiss the case. They had until January 4th originally. As Nikki pointed out, because of the holidays, they submitted the extension to the judge who granted it until January 22nd. So that's the day that they'll have to make their final determination on whether or not they want to proceed with their case. So again, there's still some question marks there, but they've at least indicated they're likely to dismiss the case based on the fact of what Nikki just said, that this 10% was included in the final word language. It looks an awful lot like the language that was in the chief's report and the recommendations moving forward. So So that's where we stand with that, with the legal case. So we'll know more by the end of this month.
So I have another question. What was the person, that 90 emails or whatever, but was that to one particular employee or was that to multiple people at National Marine Fisheries?
That was to the head of regulatory, one particular person. And we did find out from DeFazio's chief of staff that there was a meeting between for the congressional offices and the head of NIMS Northwest region and West Coast, and made it clear that shouldn't be happening again. But DeFazio's staff also highly recommended that if anyone gets a buy-off, that they should probably be FOIAing, which is the public records request communication, to ensure that it doesn't happen after.
Yeah, John, I was just going to say that, you know, in a way, OWOC has kind of cleared the path for you a little bit for your YRWA's intake permitting that's coming down the road. So that's just something back in your mind. There's a lot of behind the scenes communication that I think has been going on in the past, and hopefully we've kind of put a stop to that. So,
Yeah, that should not be happening.
No. So that's just another good example of why your OWOC dues is bringing you value.
Here.
Yeah, it's just cheaper for us to do things together than any one of us getting kind of attacked. And
Yeah.
I think we noticed years ago that was a strategy that Water Watch had taken, was to go after some of small utilities that didn't have really the means to fight it. And that's why we kind of banded together to, you know, help support them, so we don't all have to live with the precedents there. So, but I would have to say, you know, I think what was made clear by the congressional offices is that it's not bad that they just, you know, they can talk to a stakeholder, but they have to give equal access to all stakeholders. They can't just talk to one, because then NIM said it didn't influence their buyout. I think that's, you know, I don't know if we'll really know that at this point. But, you know, it's just concerning that they didn't open up the same opportunity to other interest groups. And I think they learned their lesson on that.
Definitely. I guess the other question I had was it Joel? Were you going to be sending us an invoice? I can't remember.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I was waiting till we had this conversation, just
Okay.
kind of all up to speed.
That's fine.
And,
and
go ahead, Adam.
well, John, I was just going to say that I thought that part of this update would just help you and whoever, you know, else from YRWA was on the call to help understand, you know, the need for the federal lobbyists for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
All the work that got done. And then this next slide, I think, is a little bit more about some of the, you know, we're not quite finished yet. I think Nikki has kind of brought us across the finish line on the federal side, but now there's some state implementation issues that OWOC will be going to bat for as well. So Nikki, maybe you want to just explain those.
Yeah, so we've been working with Representative Helm on this water rate transfer issue. And I think, John, you know, it's not a problem on natural flow rights. You can change the character of use, but apparently the department has decided they have a problem on stored water. I think Hillsborough might have been the last one that actually transferred a character of use. Adam helped us with in Scoggins. He got through that before this, but so really we're trying to keep this bill simple and get it through so we can get access to municipal stored water. And that, you know, one of the conditions of the original buyout was to protect the water for fish as well. So they won't be in compliance with that if they aren't able to transfer the water, right? Ag is this might be their last stand to try to stop the whole thing. I can understand their frustration, but they're trying to roll in a location should be included in this, which is a whole different animal. You know, it's one thing if you move like storage, like a farm pond or something, but it's a whole nother thing if you're moving a big dam and habitat losses and stuff like that. So Helm has a companion bill to create a task force to work on that issue, because I think he acknowledges it's an issue that needs to be resolved, but probably unlikely to be done right away. Like this one's a little simpler of a fix, but committing to still working on the location issue. that is a specific issue for, I know the city of Newport, and so we are committed as well to staying engaged and making sure that we can resolve that. We'll need to continue to work on the contracting program. There's going to be this larger buyout, and I think what we learned last time is to not forget about that, even if it takes them 10 years to do it. The staff changes over and then forgets to put in municipal demands, so we'll need to stay on top of that. And implementation of buyout. There's a lot of complicated factors in there that we need to kind of figure out how that impacts us long term, especially for those of us that might want to get a storage contract. You know, the cost benefit of that, and make sure that that kind of stays in our best interest. Or if there's things that we need to move forward at a federal level to make it more affordable, we'll be looking at that as well.
Yeah, that was the other issue, is the affordability of the water.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to the cost of our contracts at Egg Lake, but it's a low interest, like 30-year loan. But that's something I raised with DeFazio while we were going through this, but he was dealing with the fact that a lot of the hydroelectric folks wanted to bail on this and not pay for the fish improvements, and he was not happy with that they had all these years of the benefit. And so he's asked us to kind of hold off on that issue and deal with it separately. So and once we get the storage contracts, we'll be able to have a better idea what that is. But that might be something in the future that we want to join together and decide if we can hit that. But yeah, he was not too happy with the hydro and just wanting to just bail at the 11th hour after getting all the benefit.
Well,
and not wanting to pay for it.
the problem with because I have both sides. The problem on the hydro side is it's our very expensive energy. It's the most expensive we have.
Well, that's what EWEB said. They're kind of in the same boat because they do power and water. And so they're in that same boat. And the question is there, what they're looking at might be more of a reallocation of the costs to what the hydro impacts are. And I think that's a better potential model than just them not getting any power out of it. So.
Right. Because what they've been doing is allocating probably a higher percentage to power than really they should be. So, and that's not true. That's true not just for the Willamette project, but all the federal projects.
Yeah, and DeFazio said that's something that we need to take a look at because, like on this project, you have this big benefit of hydro, but you didn't have all these other options of spreading that cost around. And so, and I think from his perspective, it's a federal cost because it's for endangered species. So I think he just said there's a lot of work to do on that, but he thought as well that the hydroelectric might have gotten a bigger share of the burden early on. So, but he didn't want to try to tackle that issue at the same time as the reallocation. So, but that's just one I stay out of because once we start talking power, I'm way past my knowledge.
Yeah, well, so John, we appreciate you letting us crash your meeting and give a quick update. And again, I think the message is that with a lot of support, we've been successful on the federal side, but with support, and we've still got, some work to do on the state side, especially, I did not mention, I think this, John, all the water that's being stored right now, the 1.6 million acre feet, all is under a water right to store the water for irrigation. So despite all this great work that we've done, we're just kind of run into a wall with this inability to do a simple transfer to change it for, in stream or municipal or whatever. So there's a lot more work to do there, and we'll keep you up to date. We appreciate you helping us out with some of our state legislators to help them understand the value of that. And, and again, this is Preston for you. You're listening to this thinking like, man, what are you guys talking about? I don't need any water today. This is the 20, 50, 100 year, thinking long-term to get this all figured out on the federal side, state side, contracting side, so that we're set for the future. So again, John, we appreciate the time today.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, like, once we get past this legislative, I've been working this probably 10, 15 years, and in my new role, general manager, it's kind of becoming more and more challenging to do that. So that's what Joel's here. He's going to help take the reins during implementation. So you might see him on updates more frequently than me. So that's why I invited just a little hello and introduction to Joel as well, because he's going to take the reins and maybe some of the burdens associated with this complicated project. But I think that's how we've been, as municipalities, been able to keep it rolling, is kind of passing the torch over the years, and he gets to carry the next round. So.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. On that end note too, just, I mean, that'll continue past my time as the OWOC chair and really just helping assist Nikki transition to the project management for the state level implementation. I think Adam and Nikki would agree there's again a whole other world here that's going to take several years to see through. So.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks Adam and Nikki and Joel.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Hope you guys are all doing well and taking care of yourselves. So
Yep.
good to see you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Nikki.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. You want to go to river data, James?
All right. We lost a couple of people there. All right. So we had the river data out there for the Willamette River. What you're looking at is from November through January. As we expect, there's not a whole lot on here in regards to exceedances, because we didn't have that. But if you look on the second table there, there's a nice update for the year. And it starts at 2012 and it goes up to 2020. And as you can see under those 33 days are the second highest. We spoke about this last time a bit. The high before that was 2015 at 142. So what that means is you'd have 33 days where you wouldn't be able to draw water off this water right. We're going to continue to track this for 2021 is moving forward. So each meeting we have this update on there. The issues that have come up have been through April and June. The one exception to that was in 2015, where it did go from July to September with some issues there for drawing water, where we missed our target. But otherwise, those critical days where we wouldn't be able to draw water typically fall between April and June on there.
Anybody have any questions? Preston?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, Preston, before we adjourn?
Was that it on the discussion of water rights then this today?
Well, we're still waiting for our other Willamette right. It's still moving through the process. So
Okay.
probably sometime in May, June timeframe is what we're being told.
Very good.
But it's still going through the process. So, anything else?
Not for me.
Okay. Then, all right. Well, then I guess we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you later.